are drinking the same stuff. All of you are reaching the same place using different pathways. All of you are giving it different names. But the life invigorating thing that you are talking about is the same. Call it jala, pani or water. What difference in the name? And the people say, oh, we never knew that. This is called pluralism. Same idea of spirituality can be approached, invoked, infused using different methodology, given different names, different titles. And provided you see the commonality there, and this is a real commonality, you cannot sit well together, you'll keep fighting over the prescription, the name that you give to this idea. And this Ramkrishna said, same thing. Again, you see, nobody in the history of mankind can confirm that the same spirituality or the same experience is visible through different religions. Only this guy can give creditation, can rubber stamp it, because he has tried different pathways and reached the same destination. There's an interesting little bit of philosophic part I must touch on. Let me talk about it. You see, at experiential level, doesn't matter which religion you belong to, when you experience this thing called God or the spiritual experience that you gain, it is same. This is the claim of Ramakrishna. Same. The moment you try and give expression to it, try and find words to express it, you will use the format that you are most used to. What else can you do? You can't jump out of yourself and define it. You will use the vocabulary that you possess, depending on your own background, your cultural, historic background. You will use that vocabulary to relate to this spiritual experience. What else can you do? So even though the experience is same, when you give expression to it, you will use different language, different methods. It can't be otherwise. You can't otherwise relate to this experience. And you want to relate to it. You want to tell the other human beings what you experience. So in some cases they will see burning bushes, Judaic tradition. In some cases you see angels, Abrahamic tradition again. In some cases you see enlightenment, Buddhist tradition. In some cases in the Hindu tradition you see all these ideas of gods and goddesses or idea of Atman and Brahman. Variety of different ways. Same experience given different expression, not because there is a problem, there's no conflict. We're just showing our limitation in trying to come to terms with spirituality. Again, it's a nice story Ramakrishna gives. This is storytelling, power of storytelling. He said, you see, there lived in the sea a frog, sea frogs. They travel a long way and they see the huge ocean and they live in it. One of these days, this sea frog got lost and arrived on land and he was struggling, it was getting dry. He saw a well, and he decided to jump in the well. He jumped in the well, thinking at least I got some liquid here, water here. And he met the well frog, a little frog who had always lived all his life in the well. And they became good friends, started chatting. And the well frog said, where do you come from? I come from the sea. See, what is that? Because the well frog has only seen the well. He has never seen anything outside the well. He says, sea, what is sea? He says, vast. He said, how vast is it? Then he did one hop. Is it from here to here? He hopped once. The sea frog, nodded. He said, no, it's much bigger than just your little hop. So I know how much. 2 hops. That far, that wide. He said, no, it's too little. That's not enough. The well frog said, I'll show you the limits. He leaped from one end of the well to the other end of the well and said, that wide. The sea frog said, no, my friend, you have no clue. And the well frog got annoyed. He said, I'm going to thrash you. How can there be anything bigger than this? This is it, capacity. You are talking nonsense. You don't belong in the well. Go away. I'll thrash you otherwise. The sea frog said, okay, I did my best. He jumped out and went back to the sea. This is the story of spirituality. We can only relate to spirituality with the capacity that we possess. It cannot be any wider. What more can we do? So when we find one person of one religion claiming this is what God is about and he shows the width of his well, we smile. See, we all have different wells and this is the box in which we operate. We cannot think outside the box. And this box is limited to our own capacity. What else can we do? So different religions sit in their own boxes and fight about it. Only a frog that comes from the sea, who has seen the vastness, can say, look, all of you are struggling to make sense of the depth of spirituality, the width of spirituality. And all of you are only, if you like, reflecting a very limited vision of spirituality based on your own little box that you live in. This is the condition of world religions. Again, this width of, this breadth of vision becomes visible in the story of Ram. Again, the storytelling part is very powerful. You can say, yeah, it makes sense now. So all of us, in our own way, try and relate to the idea of spirituality based on our own capacity. We show our capacity. Look, let me give an example. Suppose this outside, the day has been very sunny, and you try and capture it on the camera, and then you put it on your television screen. And even though the television screen may be very, very kind of, high powered, with very high resolution, it can never reflect the reality outside. The pixels will begin to show up. When you look at the detail, the pixels begin to show up. It can never reflect the grand reality outside. This is true of spirituality too. It is so vast and so sweet and so intricate and so lovely that however hard we try to articulate it, we will come to a limit and our peeps begin to squeak. We cannot see the depth. The only way you can view this is through experience. So rather than fight that my religion is right and yours is wrong, why don't I actually experience what my religion is preaching me? Why don't I experience it rather than chat about it or fight about it? This is what comes in the story of Ramkrishna. Why do you want to fight about the pathway? Why don't you hang on to your pathway and go to your destination? It's another little story used quite often. Storytelling. Suppose you want to go to the roof of a house. There are various ways you can do it. You can go from the front and use the spiral staircase to climb up, or you can go to the back and use the kind of servant's kind of staircase and go up, or you might find the fire escape on the right hand side and go up. You can use various ways to go up. And yet, once you go up, it makes no difference which way you used. Don't you see? The aim is to reach the destination and not worry too much about which pathway you used. So he's telling people of religion, look, if you are serious about religion, stop fighting about religion, go to your destination. Experience this God for yourself. Again, you see, the reason why this figure or this picture is highly important is this. It is telling us that, you see, spirituality is not something that is kind of far away, in the faraway land, in the hereafter, in the heaven. No, it is here. It is in the ordinary. You find the infinite by looking at the intricacies of the finite. Here, in this very finite form, you see spirituality encapsulated, becoming visible in human form, here and now, not in the hereafter. Spirituality not kind of kicked out into the here, in the next world. Here, you catch it, experience it for yourself. This is what it's all about: making religions relevant in the times that we live in, not in the hereafter. Spiritualizing ourselves and our lives, here and now. This is the key message. And you see, again, the vibrancy with which it comes. See, we may hear about the stories of experiences and all that. We kind of brood over it. What would it be? What would it feel like? Oh, my friend, until you have a glimpse of this experience, you have not lived. You lived in shadows. It is this experience that makes life worthwhile. And again, how can you verify God? How can you come close to God? Don't you realize you are the spark of this divinity? You are the chip of the old block. You can experience Him in the most intense manner. This is what Ramkrishna was doing day and night. Every time you went into that state of ecstasy, you see spirituality visible here, experienced here, in front of our eyes, in the most ordinary manner, without any superfluous language, very visible. This is what excites me about Ramakrishna. Let me go, kind of take the story a bit further. During this period, as I said, Ramakrishna used to visit people where he thought spiritually enlightened or perhaps making progress spiritually. He would go and visit them. Look at this man, God coming, knocking on your door. When you are ready, He comes and knocks on your door and breaks it open and enters. He used to visit people like that. He visited somebody. Let me just give a little bit of background about this person. He's a great personality of modern India called Vidyasagar. Now, Vidyasagar is a great philanthropist. He is perhaps the best humanist the Hindus produced. A real humanist. Doesn't have to necessarily believe in God, but a real humanist. a major philanthropic worker. If you look at the story of Vidyasagar, it will touch you, it will capture your attention. What a lovely personality. He's a humanist, he's not a believer in God at all. Lovely person. And this Ramakrishna wants to visit him. Before I do that, let me lighten up a little bit and say something about Vidyasagar, because when I heard the story, I found it highly endearing. Now this Vidyasagar, you see, for a humanist, there is no God there, so what do they focus on? Idea of being very moral, idea of being very truthful. He was a stickler for truth, stickler. There's a lovely story about Vidyasagar. When the film industry entered India, he was quite annoyed by it. He said, this is all this lovey-dovey stuff being marketed. So it's not that different from the Bollywood phenomena. But he was already aware of these dangers of this film industry. So he hated the idea of films. He said, this is the way to corrupt human beings, corrupt youngsters. And he's walking in Calcutta, and somebody from the village came over to Calcutta for the express purpose, because he's heard there are cinema houses where you can see cinema on the screen. So he'd come from the village to see a cinema. And he enters Calcutta, and just imagine the poor guy's bad luck. When he's trying to look for the theatre, the cinema house, the only person he managed to find was Vidyasagar. So he tapped him on the shoulder, sir, can you tell me where is the cinema house? And Vidyasagar, the moment the word cinema house, he kind of flares up. He said, I don't know. And he walked away. And this man said, all right, I'll find somebody else. He's still wandering around. In a few more minutes, somebody taps him very hard on his shoulder. He looks back, there's Vidyasagar. He said, look, just now I told you, I don't know. Actually, I know where it is, but I won't tell you. You see, it's a stickler. He was like that. That personality, that sound. You see, we may smile. But to develop this character, that you are establishing truth to this level, is also, if you like, a prerequisite for spiritual progress. It is very much a prerequisite. Here is this Vidyasagar, and this Ramakrishna goes to visit him. The reason why I'm bringing him is because I want to show you the intellectual dimension of Ramakrishna, because this Vidyasagar is a great intellectual. And when they meet, look at the humility of this God-man. He said, today I'm very pleased to meet you, because I seem to have come to the brink of the ocean. Sagar means ocean. And look at the humility of the Vidyasagar too. He said, sir, you come here, very good, but this ocean is full of salty water. Take some salt out. It is sour. And Ramakrishna said, but you are Vidyasagar, not Avidyasagar. You are safe. This is how they interact. You see the sweetness and the gentleness and the openness. But the discussion that takes place in a way shows the philosophic dimension to Ramakrishna, which I want to highlight. A little bit of philosophy, please bear with me. I've done the funny part about Vidyasagar in the cinema, but now bear with me. You see, the discussion is this. If you think of Atman, or you think of Brahman, and you think of Maya as something that is kind of in a way shrouding Brahman, you are seeing them as two different entities, spirit, or the underpinning to this universe, which is exciting, which is our real nature, which is the real nature of this universe, shrouded, if you like, by Maya. Oh dear, this Maya is a nuisance. This is the way the Hindus have been thinking about Maya and Brahman. They have never managed to reconcile it. Always Maya is vilified as something that's obscuring our knowledge of Brahman. This is the height of philosophy. The resolution comes in the story of Ramakrishna. He said, look, the way we categorize this as two separate things is a mistake. This is the human nature. Whenever we want to categorize, we try and put them in separate boxes. So we say, here is the Brahman, one box, lovely chap. And here is Maya, horrible monster, blocking it. This way of separating creates a conflict. Because in reality, Brahman and Maya are not separate. They are intertwined in the most minute manner. And the lovely example Ramakrishna gives is like this. If you think of milk, and if you think of whiteness, would you say they are separate? They are intertwined. You cannot think of milk without whiteness. They are intertwined. In the same way, Brahman and Maya are intertwined. One is not a villain. It is when Brahman You see, the thing is, because we try and categorize it as substance and its attribute or something that's influencing substance, we get into this complication. When you see it as one, you can go the spiritual experience becomes very easy. When you see them as one, you do not vilify the world that you see in front of you. This is why Swami Vivekananda says, do not seek God. Just rub your eyes, see God. Don't you see this thing that appears very ordinary is most extraordinary? It is God alone who is sitting in front of you, looking at you through all these eyes. Where else will you look for your God? When you stop seeing them as separate entities, one good, one not so good, you get into complication. When you see them as intertwined, and this thing that is in front of you is nothing but the spirit. It is the same thing. Brahman and Maya combined. You can never have one without the other. This idea of trying to separate them out and just get the Brahman and leave the Maya out is outdated. It may have suited the purpose of Adi Shankara. It does not suit the needs of modern society. To actually divinify mankind, to see spirit as the real nature of this world that we live in, is what comes through Ramkrishna. First time, this idea of spirituality here and now, visible in human terms, comes through the story of Ramakrishna. They are there. See God, don't seek God. Don't you see? It is God alone. What else is all this? You see, where do I find resonance with these ideas? And again, somebody is saying, what is the relevance of Ramakrishna in modern time? I'm showing you where the relevance is. If you look at the Warwick University website, it's a big thing going on, because we are now telling modern science, this is the finding of, I just touch on it for a few seconds, because otherwise it becomes very heavy. Modern science is telling us, you see this world in front of you? And you think it's made of little lumps of matter? Misunderstanding. This world that you see in front of you is nothing but some principle, difficult to define, we call it quantum, difficult to define, that shudders and appears as this creation. Shudder in existence. Shudder in existence. It's a shudder. And this existence and shudder cannot be separated. They are intertwined. And the universe, you can never experience the universe unless there is this thing in front of you which is nothing but shudder, if you like, shudder in existence. This is reality. Look, my friends, I'm telling you. See, when you see this mundane world, you get caught up because you start classifying, articulating, putting things in boxes. See it in its purest nature, in its pristine nature. It is nothing but spirit in front of us. God here and now, taking on all this variety of different forms. This Ramkrishna was telling me the second, do you know how I experience what I feel? When I look at the whole universe, it appears as if it is stuffed by the same thing with different cases, in different cases. So when I see human beings, I feel the same thing there, but in a different case, like a pillowcase, different pillowcase, but the same stuffing in all of them. I see it like this in front of me. This is what spiritual is about. This is where we dignify humanity. You are the expression of the spirit. It is spirit alone that takes on all these forms and sits and plays in front of us. You see, these ideas may sound very outlandish, perhaps very stylish. This is where the world is going to in this century. This idea of seeing spirituality visible in our lives in human terms, in human way. Seeing God in front of us, interacting with the living God, not God in the heavens, but the living God in front of us, dignifying and divinifying whole of humanity. And this is the way forward. And these marvelous ideas are kind of visible in the way this rustic man, this rustic old man presents his experiences. Let me finish this part of the story. You see, Ramkrishna said once in one of his, there are so many magical things he has said, but one thing that he said which caught my attention is this. He said, when you see God with form, suppose you see God as Ram or as Krishna or Mother God, do you know what you are actually seeing? He said, you are seeing yourself, your true self. You are reflecting your true self. You may just put that mold, but the thing that fills the mold is your essential nature. You are seeing your reflection. And we shudder, we say, we never thought that. If you actually experience God as Ram or as Krishna or as Mother Goddess, you are seeing yourself reflected most clearly. That's the mirror you use to see yourself. So they're not separate entities, separate God beings or kind of great deities. You are reflecting yourself in them. And I thought, I shuddered. I said, this has not been visible in the Hindu tradition in the past, equating you to God. You say, yeah, you are just seeing yourself. And one day he said something very interesting. He said, you see, there are two in this. He would point at his own body. He wouldn't say me or mine. There are two entities here, he would say. And then you know what the two entities are, he said. There is Bhakta and Bhagavati. There is the devotee and the mother goddess. Both here. See, that's the interplay of Ramakrishna, of seeing the mother goddess interacting, playing, singing. So the same entity coming out from just one personality. Two in the same personality. At later stage in Ramkrishna's life, when these devotees began to suss out that this man is not ordinary in any sense, even though his appearance is most ordinary, he appears to be kind of leading a very simple life and yet is so extraordinary. They began to recognize the potency of this personality. This is how it happened. One day, they were doing worship of Kali. They were planning to do worship of Kali. And Ramakrishna was sitting in his meditation somewhere. And they looked at the image of Kali. And they said, now we've got all this chandan and pushpa and fool and fruit and everything. And we must offer it to Kali. Then you see, these devotees are also now the spark of the same chip. So they are also kind of becoming wise. So they said, now who should we offer this to? This chandan and pushpa. This is Kali Puja tonight. Where do we take it? And they looked at Ramakrishna and they looked at the image. They looked at Ramakrishna and they looked at the image. They said, this is where she is. Not there. Here is she. And they took that and they worshipped him. And this Ramakrishna went into deep meditation, smiling. You may think, is it arrogance? Pure arrogance? Is he equating himself? What arrogance? He showed his colors. He showed up. He got caught out. One day, one of the little disciples came and said, look, I'm suffering and this thing. He said, you are not suffering. You are in full bliss. He said, you rascal, you caught me out. This is Ramakrishna. You see, wearing this guise of an ordinary person is, if you like, God on earth. God on earth, nothing less. You see, when you look at the image of Mother Kali, in fact, Swami Vivekananda said once like this, he said, in days to come, this Ramakrishna will be worshipped as Kali with a beard. And that day is not very far, I can assure you. When you look at the image of Mother Kali, and when you look at the image of Ramakrishna, you see why I say these things. That is the actual image being worshipped in Dakshineshwar in Calcutta. That is the actual image. Yeah? And that is the image of Ramakrishna in deepest of meditation. Difference is just the beard. You see, this image, the world has never seen. God on earth, in his divine form, fully, in full place, in full flow, in his being, in his true being. You see, if you look at the eyes, they are indrawn, and if you see the smile, the enigmatic smile, you see, he knows he is the mother of this creation. This is Ramakrishna. This is the Katha. This is the story of Ramakrishna. God on earth in the most simple manner, in the most humane manner, presenting the vision of religion that is most relevant in the times that we live in. And again, you see, the story is not finished. That's why I'm going to leave the Katha like that. It's an ongoing phenomena. In fact, one great Western thinker said, how to define this Ramakrishna? He's not a personality. He's a phenomena. And I know he got it right. It is a major phenomena unfolding on the modern world stage, where spirituality becomes invoked, becomes visible in this day and age, here and now, not in some antique period. now. See, the story, as I said, will continue. In the next few years, in the next few decades, you will suddenly find that some of these ideas that I'm presenting to you will not only be seen as outlandish or kind of flowery, but be seen as mainstream. They will become mainstream. Humanism will become spiritual humanism. Science will turn to spirituality. Physics will become metaphysics. All by the grace of this one super personality called Ramakrishna. Thank you.